Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to CyberCast After Dark. It is that time again. It is Wednesday night. It is 9 p.m. Eastern. The kids are in bed, and it's time to talk cyber with the grown-ups because that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a lot of fun, hopefully, because that's how I roll, dog. Like to have my fun. Hopefully, you're here to have a good time as well. Good evening, everyone. Already starting to see lots of really cool people, some ride or dies out there in the chat, hanging out with us tonight. Let's see here, TJ Williams, Alice Grimm, Tech Grunts. What is up, everyone? Oh, there's my boy FedX right there. He says, "Oh, that shirt looks beautiful." It does, doesn't it? And it's a bit apropos because tonight's guest, one Mr. Michael Rogers, he is actually the chair of the board when it comes to B-Sides Tampa. So for all of us Florida people and even those international and abroad that come in for B-Sides Tampa know how great that con is, and we love to support it. Always a great time. Actually, a ton of great B-Sides out there. So if you haven't checked out your local B-Sides, I highly recommend that you do that to become a part of it, volunteer, give a talk, do something, support that B-Sides effort because it is what's up. Without further ado, I say we go ahead and grab Michael from the backstage area. We were talking earlier, and I think he's going to agree with me that, Michael, you think we should go ahead and get that Deep South APT called Kentucky Fried Chicken? Or I call it Southern Fried Chicken. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I think we should create some purple team scenarios around that. Or what did you call Gators again? That was pretty epic.
The American Murder Log.
Yeah, pretty fitting for Florida. So
yeah, because if you step on one of those things, it will kill you, and it does it indiscriminately. Does not care at all. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate you. Mike, now you reached out to me on LinkedIn. You were like, "Man, I'd love to be a part of this show." I said, "Are you kidding me? You better bring your sack lunch because we're going to have a great time." So I told him, bring it on. He gave me a couple of really great topics for us to talk about. One, first and foremost, being about purple teaming. We'll get to that. But for those of you out there in my chat that are unfamiliar with you, Mike, tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I got into the space, kind of jumping through a bunch of roles, doing infrastructure work, help desk work. Wanted to really get into cybersecurity. I know there may be a lot of people out there trying to get in. It is possible. I got very lucky. I took the Security Plus, got a great job in Tampa, moved out from Gainesville to Tampa. And kind of had every different position within a security operations center, from analyst to SIM engineer to content developer, managed a SOC for a while. So kind of focused on security operations for around 7.5 years. Definitely looking back, I did not have the skill set to get in, and I was granted, the opportunity, right? Just keep trying and trying to break through. I know a lot of people are looking to get into the space, and it's a lot of fun. And you just got to show the energy and passion, right? That's what a lot of companies are looking for at the end of the day. So spent around 7.5 years in the operations side. Back to our purple team topic, that's where a lot of that focus came from. And then moved into incident response for the last 4.5 years, dealing with APT groups, ransomware groups, insider threat, business email compromise, recovering major enterprises from ransomware. You guys may have seen the news recently, scattered spider cases, all the kind of the noise out there, have been able to kind of work those in the front line. So currently focused on really helping kind of respond to major incidents, but then also building up controls and protecting those environments. And then, as you mentioned on the side, fortunate to work with a great team at B-Sides Tampa, and we, B-Sides St. Pete's coming up this weekend. Some of the crew will be out there, of course, and then B-Sides Tampa will be next year, May 15th and 16th. So keep an eye out for the call for papers for that.
Oh, it's going to be fire. We love the B-Sides Tampa. It is always so good. I've been going for the last, 3 years or so, like religiously. I don't miss it because it's just gotten so good. You guys are putting on such a phenomenal con. Always great vendors, always great speakers. They always give great talks. Hallway Con is on point. Love getting in there, hanging out with people, and just like I can't tell you how many people I've met just going to B-Sides Tampa because, I mean, how many people were at the last B-Sides Tampa? Do we have a number on that?
Yeah, I think it was around 2,300. I'll have to look at my, yeah, it's roughly around that. I think, we're at a really good spot now, and the venue has really worked out nicely too. So yeah, it was a big showing last year, and we keep adding roughly 300 every year. We don't want to
Yeah.
be, an overwhelming conference. Want to have it about the community and getting people to meet each other, keep everyone engaged. But it's definitely growing pretty rapidly. So
It's crazy. Now, I mean, let's see here. I think that like something like Wild West Hackenfest is like 700 to 800 people. And that is a very well respected, loved con. And you guys are pulling 2,300 because you have a great venue. You have the capacity. You've got the best, like all the rooms are great. We don't have to deal with sound issues. You got that big auditorium. It's just a phenomenal venue you guys got going on down there.
yeah, I think we definitely got lucky with the student center. We'll see if we eventually outgrow it too, but it's yeah, the food trucks were a hit last year. There's a lot of good things that came out of it, and we get a lot of good feedback that we review and implement year to year too. So a lot of really good community feedback on ways to kind of level it up. And yeah, there's like tons of village options too that we're looking at for next year, ways we can make it a bit different, more interactive. I think going out to DEF CON this year, it was pretty neat how interactive it was, where you could, have a laptop and jump space to space and do kind of a lot of hands-on, right, at hacking or testing, and yeah, looking at ways we can like pull that into B-Sides too. So
Yeah, that's going to be awesome if you guys get all that going. Or if I can just show up with a laptop and either do hands-on stuff and then go sit a talk and then go hang out with some people and then go do some hands-on stuff. And I mean, that's going to be, you guys are going to make a big name for yourself. You understand that, right? You're going to just keep growing and growing and growing because the word is getting out that B-Sides Tampa is one of the cons to hit in the yearly rounds. So I wish you the best. I know it takes a lot to get those cons going. So volunteers out there, everybody that's listening, if you're in the area and you can volunteer, or if you're going to fly in, you can still volunteer.
yeah, and I started off doing the website for B-Sides Tampa. So there's so many opportunities just to help, and it's all driven by the community. It's nonprofit, so it's we're a family, the team that helps out. And it's just a great, if you're not in the Tampa area, if you see a local B-Sides or see another one going on, it's just a great opportunity to network, meet people, and strengthen certain things that you can't do in your day job. Like if you want to lead and manage a team, you can, hey, go test it at helping kind of the community out, see how you can manage people there, learn from people in the space already. So it's, you don't really get that much time, with your day to day to network with people. It gives you kind of a lot of doors that you can open with the community. So definitely encourage it too.
Never know who you're going to meet there. You never know what person you're going to sit down next to and strike up a conversation. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're really interested in that? Man, it sounds like you're super passionate. We're looking for someone. Happens all the time. You could be next. So go to cons like B-Sides Tampa, talk with people, interact, show your passion, bring your A game, have fun, right? Because anybody knows, y'all better have some fun. If the fun does not happen, the beatings will continue. Okay, so don't make me get ugly. All right, Michael, let's get these people what they want, because we teased them a little bit talking about that purple team. Right now, we were talking about this right before we got started as we worked through our audio issues, which was fun, and because I had them, he had them. It's a good time. Computers hate us. I hate them back. Anywho. As we were talking, we were saying, like I feel like purple teaming is something that we talk about, but I don't feel like it gets enough talk. And that's why when you brought that up as a possible conversation, I said, ooh, yes, we can talk some purple team stuff. Let's start off with, for those that are new or getting into cyber that may be watching or maybe watch this later as it's recorded, can you define what purple teaming is for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So purple team, as some people would imagine, right? You're kind of merging red and blue and making purple. So your defense team, right? That can make up a kind of a larger structure within a company. So if you have a Fortune 100, 500 company to SMB, that changes. But you're looking at your defense team. That it can be now. I would say you should be thinking about even your infrastructure team that's more responsible for security. But that's your SOC team, the team that's building detections in the SIM, monitoring the EDR, the team that's responding to email security alerts, really kind of that full stack of internal resources that kind of mold up and make your blue team. I would also include in there, kind of any role that kind of falls into that. I would say every company is a little bit unique. You may wear all the hats. You may be the blue team, right? Doesn't mean you can't do purple teaming. And then on the red side, you're looking at your kind of, if you don't have one, there's options out there, but your pen test or your red team, or you can do it yourself, right? You can bring the red into the org. The team that's actually testing, validating controls and trying to attack the environment. So really at a high level, I think that's, what you're looking at from a purple team approach. And as security teams grow and mature, the challenge that I see with large enterprises is that you sometimes get in your own silos and you don't talk with the different team members. So it's really breaking those barriers and creating a kind of a feedback loop that you can, hey, we're monitoring the environment 24/7. The red team comes along. Now we have to prove how good we are and make sure we catch them. It shouldn't be that scary. It should be, fun engagement where, hey, yeah, we didn't catch that this time. What did you do? Can I see you actually do it? There's actually a lot of professional service teams out there too that do a great job at kind of coming in and just providing that ad hoc support. I know, Bryson team site, they're in the area. It's just a lot of value that you're going to be able to pull out of it, but it's just something you should build into your kind of system and your processes within the company. So I was fortunate when I got into the SOC. My mentor basically kind of really encouraged me to, hey, go play in CTS, figure out how attackers are actually impacting environments. If you're going to detect and monitor, you need to understand how they work. What I see now is a lot of people getting into the space that they've never ran Kali. They don't know how easy it is to perform an attack. A good example is EvoJinx, right? How easy is it to steal a token? Do you need a password? You actually don't. It's those little nuances that people, if you're on the response side, you need to know that will help really defend or help you respond properly to an incident. So it's not a one and done deal. It's and I did a presentation. I was talking to Dan about it before. I did a presentation 4 years ago. It's still pretty much 100% accurate. There's just so many opportunities out there to take advantage of. So, Dan, any thoughts on that too?
Yeah, I was going to say, so basically what you're telling us is that we need to take kind of pages out of both playbooks when it comes to the blue team and the red team. We're kind of focused on the defensive, but we're using red team tactics. Does that mean that we're using manual kind of attacks or just tools like you said, what we find in Kali Linux, or are we spinning up things like Atomic Red Team or Caldera, Infection Monkey, and that kind of stuff as well? Or is it a combination of all those things?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely a combination where, you want to make sure you have a good process and the team has strong kind of synergies and a feedback loop established where it's like, oh, on the blue side, did we create detections? Do we have a threat hunting campaign for this now? On the red teaming side, did we, actually validate and test the environment? But I think you can really go crazy with it, right? I think there's some companies that have their own lab environment that they can really test these out in, right? If you're a hospital, right, you can't go and run a C2 command and control and kind of isolate hosts. You may need some testing grounds to sharpen the team up. But yeah, I think, there's some really cool tools, like you mentioned, out there that you can kind of run and just parse through. But you can also, crawl, walk, run with it too. So you don't have to, scare anyone, but like make it a strong output and focus on the outcomes.
Would you say that with purple teaming, because we tend to have this kind of cadence, right, that we're used to, which is, okay, we're going to build some defenses, we're going to put them into place, we're going to look at them, and we're going to feel good inside, and then, oh no, it's pen test time. Pen testers kind of parachute in with their spec ops looking selves, and they do all this crazy exploitation. They run all these scans. They have a good time. They're either doing assume breach or maybe they're doing some black box stuff. But at the end of the day, they kind of kick our butts and they hand us the report of how they kicked our butts in great detail, I'm sure, which they revel in. Right. And then we go, okay, let's try to learn from this. They got some recommendations. And then we do it again. We lather, rinse, repeat. Whereas purple teaming seems to me more like it's, hey, like you were describing this, where maybe me and you are sitting in a sock, and I go, you know what? I'm going to run some stuff. Get your eyes on the board. Get watch the dashboard. And let's see if anything pops. And I try something. Okay, did you see it? And you go, no, I didn't. Or yeah, got it right there. And then we see, well, how does that look? Well, we have thought that was a fault. It seems more like a back and forth, more kind of a dance or a game than it is this, regular cadence of security that we're used to. Am I close to right on this?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think, there's a lot of things that drive that regular cadence from sometimes leadership may see it as a checkbox, right? We need to do our annual pen test. We got that knocked out, but it really should be, that game between the team. And you're on the red team side, or kind of, the spec ops side coming in with, it just cracks me up. I love how we're talking about like evicting APT groups and sword fighting, and the team's like, is that really how it is? Like, yeah, absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, it should be that interactive piece and showing the blue team, how the tools work, how hard it is, or how challenging it is to stand up the infrastructure, and then what sucks, right? If the blue team's blocking certain activity or taking certain actions, you want to, sometimes attackers are going to get in. How can you make their life miserable? And on the red side, on the red team side, I think it's just as important to understand the defenses and what the team's doing and reacting, and what you have visibility into. I used to work closely with the red team before, and they would be like, all right, from a forensic perspective, what could you see? How could you, if they're trying to do kind of low and slow and like APT style attacks, like, well, how could you see under the curtain, see what we were doing? And how could you attribute this back to what we were doing? So I think it goes both ways. It should be kind of beneficial to both groups, but it shouldn't be kind of a quick, hey, we ran it. This is how bad you did. Good luck next time. And there's a lot more, I would say, even if you're using a third-party vendor, a lot more pen testing teams are able to do purple teaming. You just have to ask. They have the capability. So if you don't have an internal team that specializes in that, then you might want to just see how you can use your vendors differently too, or look for other options out there.
I like your advice, and as we all know, that compliance checkbox does equal security. And that's how it goes. So a lot of fun there. So now that we understand what purple teaming is, by the way, everybody out there, if you got questions, you know what to do. You drop those in the old chat. And you can at my name. Makes it really easy for me to see them, pick them out from the crowd, from just the random fun chatter that's going on. Love to watch everybody talking. You're like, it's fun for me because I get to listen to Mike, and then I also have to watch the chat and go, haha, yeah, they're funny. Anyway, he's Mike saying things. I gotta pay attention. So good times had by all. But make sure you drop those comments, drop those things. If you want to get them seen, you want to ask Mike a question, feel free. We are live. This is fun. This is meant to just have a good time. Had by all, learn a bit of stuff. And now that we got Mike here, we can kind of dig in a little further. Now, we've kind of gotten through the idea of what a purple team is, kind of figuring out that landscape. Let's start talking about the future when it comes to threats, when it comes to attack surfaces. Obviously, we've got a little thing. You may have heard of it. It's called AI. It's making some waves. It might stick around. I don't know. It seems like a flash in the pan. But I can only assume that is changing how purple teams are doing things. How is AI, the big disruptor, affecting things like purple teaming?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, obviously just with teams testing out different types of AI-enabled attacks, I think there's a lot of opportunities there for attackers to take advantage of automations, right? With just discovery of environments to creating, their own customized and adaptable toolkits. I'm excited. I know we all talk about it, right? I'm on the defense side, but you're excited to see what attackers do, right? So unfortunately, pretty excited to see what comes out in the future. so I think that's just going to be part of it too, is like, how can we test and validate some of the kind of theories and ideas that attackers are messing around with. I know I was recently over at Falcon, and there were some really good presentations around, attackers and dark web forums around what people are talking about and using from an AI perspective. So I think that would just be a piece of it, is, how can we evolve and integrate that into kind of the attack path. And then on a kind of the defense side, a common theme at DEF CON Black Hat this year was a lot of security operations centers integrating AI into their workloads. So how can we kind of reduce and automate low alerts? How can we kind of automate more threat hunting campaigns, kind of piece all that data that we have together? It's always been a big data challenge. So I think, using and molding AI around certain data sets is definitely going to be a way, right, that keeps challenges the blue team, and then keeps them kind of evolving ahead of kind of what attackers are doing as well. So we'll see how that plays out. That will be a big piece, I think, this year and next year, early next year, where you see the major MDR companies integrating that into their solutions. So yeah, I think there's going to be, essentially more AI based solutions that pull out, automatically what an attacker does, like what a red team does, to give that proper context to the blue team so that they can build the right detections. You see a lot with the red teamers out there that they, really don't want to maybe dig into the report writing, or they do report writing and it doesn't translate to the blue team properly. So I think AI is going to help translate, the red team work, and then also simplify or, expedite what the blue team does. So yeah, I think, I thought AI was going to be more of just, another zero trust, hey, this is cool, but no one will pay for it. It does not seem to be the case, in my opinion. I think this is going to be something that, I think I watched one of your recent videos, and the one guy mentioned, like, it's a toothpaste out of the tube, you can't get it back in.
Nope.
So that was epic. I'm working on my analogies, but yeah, I think it's going to be something that we all have to adapt to, and we're going to be behind on. And it's going to create a lot of challenges for both sides.
How are you integrating AI with your current work?
Yeah, we're so there's a couple different ways. One would be, clients kind of on the front lines, kind of providing advisory and making sure all these new, companies that are integrating AI are doing it in the right way, where it doesn't put their data at risk. For example, vendors that use AI that certain parts of the business want to adopt. I talked to one the other month, and they didn't have EDR in their environment. So there's, certain security controls that a lot of vendors are coming out. A lot of vendors are getting spun up, being able to use AI, that they're not actually securing their own environments. They're just kind of trying to sell a product quick. So it's creating a lot of risk, I would say, just with the opportunities that businesses see versus, the whole vendor onboarding process. But with ways that, on our side that we look at kind of integrating it, is the context space of, like, how can we take, right? We do a lot of forensic work. How can we put this in an easy way for counsel, legal, major teams out there to interpret? And how can we quickly provide this feedback to the client, where they can understand where the investigation is, what the findings are, and kind of pulling all the threat intel and integrating that and weaving that in the right way. So it's definitely a crawl, walk, run approach. Shouldn't just be like kind of haphazardly thrown together, right? I know we all, I'm getting better at AI prompts day to day. I would say there's definitely good ways to do it, and you have to just look at, modeling it out and giving the right inputs and making it very specific.
I love when I realized that I've prompted you wrong and I'm starting over. Because it's just giving me ridiculous outputs. I'm like, no, you don't. Oh, I assumed something. It's like it's almost like speaking to an alien that just kind of knows English. And you have to tell it very explicitly and specifically, and put in as much detail and context as you possibly can, so that it goes, Oh, you wanted a horse. Gotcha. Here I
Yeah,
am. I was over here making, crazy things. I'm trying to put toothpaste back into tubes, and
yeah.
here you are talking horses.
I think we get trained up to where I got a 6-year-old and very literal. So you kind of
Yeah.
get I'm getting trained indirectly on like how to prompt AI. It's like if you tell it to do this, it's going to do this. So are you committed?
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I think it's
Well,
a slippery slope.
that is funny. That is funny, but the totally true thing. Now we got a few questions that have popped in, so I say we take a little time and check in with the chat and see what they got going on here. This one comes from Cody, and it looks like it is directed specifically to me, which is watching Dan's CEH V12 course. How does the theory exam compare to Pen Test Plus, which I've passed? They're probably pretty similar, honestly. A lot of overlap in those exams with Pen Test Plus. Pen Test Plus is much more geared to here's what it's like to be a pen tester, and they're trying to walk you through that and give you just that specific type of job role, and as far as their objectives go. Whereas CEH, and they say this in their website in some buried documents because I found them one time. I was like, oh, what's this with my little headlamp on? And they're like, we're not a pen testing cert. We're an ethical hacking cert. There's a difference. Don't confuse the two. And it's like, yeah, but the general average everyday person out there kind of does conflate the two normally. So fun that you bury this little document. So, but as far as content goes, it's going to be extremely similar. You're going to talk about doing recon, enumeration, moving into exploitation for like web and network and so on and so forth, and then have some post exploitation stuff as well. CEH, the last I checked, they didn't really get too deep in the weeds when it came to things like scoping and agreements, whereas Pentest Plus is much more like, hey, don't forget, there's another part to this job, which is talking to clients, delivering deliverables, having meetings, points of contact, doing that part of the job. So if you want more of a pen testing certification, I would get Pen Test Plus. If you're just looking for general knowledge, CEH is fine. It's way more expensive though, so I'd still go with Pen Test Plus. By the way, speaking of Pen Test Plus, I know someone that just created a Pen Test Plus course that covers almost every exam objective, over 24 hours of content, and that would be me. And that is on the Simply Cyber Academy. So if you want to get checked out for that, you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD20 to get 20% off of that course right now. No, the shameless plug. Anyway, moving on, we've got more. Let's see here. I think this one's a really good one. This one comes from TechGrunt11G. How many years of experience or certifications, both and I think, would qualify someone for a purple team? What say you, Mike?
Yeah, I would say really you don't have to wait to be able to, well, there are definitely companies that are building out purple teams, right? That have kind of, I guess I would say enterprise level security operations centers, you're talking like Fortune 500, Fortune 1000. So it's, I would say you don't have to kind of, I would kind of focus on the practical piece of, what's your current role? Are you an analyst? Then, are you testing and playing in CTFs and trying to learn about red teaming? And then how can you pull that back and integrate that into your day-to-day? So, it's almost building a business. I have some material too, if anyone's kind of interested of like how to build a business case internally to kind of move forward with purple teaming. But I wouldn't say you need any specific certifications outside of just kind of growing in the security operations side of the house and seeing how you can help implement it and kind of be part of the process, right? Because at the end of the day, it does take a team, and would definitely recommend using your existing team and kind of molding it into your approach. And also just, some companies I've worked with in the past, like it'll be one security person and they'll go and just run tools, right? And see and kind of step through that process on their own. So
it sounds like you're saying you don't actually have to have necessarily like a proper purple teaming. You can just implement. It's more of a philosophy and an application that you do. That not that you can't have a purple team specifically like a per se, but like if I was working in like a small business and we were just a couple of people sitting behind the desk trying to run the whole shenanigan, I could go, you know what? We could start doing some of this stuff and checking our defenses and kind of poking at our own stuff before we ever do something proper. Maybe we're, regulation or compliance for a pen test or something. We'd be much more ready for that. I actually did that I worked at an insurance company, and I was a net and sysadmin there, and we would do that kind of stuff. And this was back when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah. I've had in my past job too, where you would send an escalation to the client. You're like, this is a bad link. And then all of a sudden you see someone's clicking on that link going to it. So there's just testing and seeing like how the team would respond. And I mean, I'm not encouraging anyone to do that. There's definitely safer ways to do it. But yeah, I think different certs can help you kind of build up the foundation you need to provide value back to the business, right? How can you create detections? Can you use, red team tools? Do you understand how the different teams operate? But yeah, it's just kind of, every company you can go and do it now. It's just a nuanced approach based on the company for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool stuff though. Great question, Tech Round. Let's see here. This is one that comes from our resident question expert, Alice Grimm. She is very, very smart with the question. She says, could you see a future where being a purple team becomes a norm, or do you see it still being more split off with specialties, that kind of stuff? So do we ever see a future where, you know what? Purple team is just kind of the name of the game. If you ain't got a purple team, I don't know what you're doing here. You're that's Bush League. This is the majors. Bring it up.
Yeah, I think it definitely is and will be the norm, as teams see the need to have kind of that integration. There's some companies that are doing it now and kind of scaling it up. But yeah, I definitely think it's going to be more. If not, there's going to be ways to kind of automate and integrate that into the team, where you may not have to have dedicated resources that focus on it. I do see more and more tooling and services and teams kind of finding ways to integrate, that feedback loop, make it very interactive, kind of make it transparent what the red team's doing. And then on the same thing on the blue side, right, of like kind of giving that visibility to everyone. So I think more and more teams aren't hiding the great work they do. It's more transparent. Yeah, it's definitely going to become the norm. And yeah, even I've seen job titles like chaos creator, people that their main job at certain companies is just to create noise. So, it's always going to be kind of proving the value to the business. Can you communicate this up? And, if you check out the SANS presentation I did 4 years ago on it too, you'll see kind of like some of the ways you can kind of get executive buy-in and show the ROI. So if you're really interested in doing it, that's the way to do it. Show them, how is this time valuable? How can I, the time I put into this, is this providing value back to the business? And it absolutely will be. It's just, people get comfortable with what they hear works, not, innovating and finding the best way to do it. So you can be kind of part of that change too.
Awesome. And actually, that kind of dovetails into the next question that I have for you, which is, well, how do we let's say that I'm in charge of a SOC, or I'm a part of a SOC, or maybe I have a small business, maybe I have a medium sized, heck, maybe I have an enterprise business, and maybe the answer is different for all three of those different types of things. But what is my strategy for implementing a purple team into my environment? What's a good way to go about it for all of those levels?
Yeah, I think really defining the process first of, if you're running it completely on your own, just kind of noting like, hey, we're going to have a research and development piece of this where we're going to define the campaign on the red teaming side. We're going to, have detections that we develop on the detection side. And through this test, these are the outputs. So it's kind of, establishing that process regardless what size you are. The difference, I would say, when you're leveling up, maybe you're at enterprise, is you want to visualize the different teams and what their responsibilities would be. For example, for threat hunting, right, you may have a team that you need to get together to build out threat hunting campaigns. So it'd be similar here, where you want to include all the right stakeholders early in the R&D process, from the red team, detection team, threat intel team, hunt team, or vendors that you may integrate or lean into, and kind of step through, right, the outcomes you want. Because otherwise, right, there's going to be a squeaky wheels. The team isn't going to be focused in making this outcome specific. And then there's a crawl, walk, run approach too, where, you just start off with doing kind of a point in time test. You then, build in to kind of how you're doing more threat modeling, detection testing, creating TTPs, right? Collaborating on what an attacker could or couldn't do, like the Florida APT group we were talking about. And then you're kind of moving into the running mode where you're, doing more proactive threat hunting. You're bringing those findings back to the team. And then eventually it's just going to be a process where it's like, yeah, no, of course that's what we're doing, and these are the outcomes. So yeah, I would say it's really just setting up the process depending on the size of the team, and making sure you're just following it through and you can actually notate and document it. There's some pretty cool tools out there too that are making it easier to consolidate the findings, right? Of like, hey, I did this on the red side, I did this on the blue side. I think I see in the chat a couple people mentioning different tools that they've seen work out really well. So if you can take advantage of those tools, that might make it easier for a smaller team to kind of showcase your outcomes and make it standardized. But there's also, again, like consulting teams that you can bring in to actually go and, hey, can you guys just jump in and do this for me too? So, but yeah, I'll throw a link into like the SANS presentation too, and it hits some of these items too in more depth if anyone's interested too.
Yeah, excellent. We love a good resource. That is for sure. So if you got some good resources, throw them in our private chat, and then I will make that available for everyone that is watching. They will love it, I am sure. Now, as you're working on that, because, it just makes me start to think about questions. First of all, I just want to let you know, I just received a text from the Southern APT group that is, Southern Fried Chicken. They're very upset. It's APT Deep South with how we're talking about them. But I told them I didn't care, and they can go back to, buying camo hats or something. I don't know. And that's it. I was get more into the actual Purple Team stuff, though, trying to have some fun here. But, we've talked about trying to implement a Purple Team, trying to get that going. Now, we can either go with skills in-house or you can outsource those things. But I would assume that anybody that's out there watching that's interested in maybe being a part of a Purple Team is trying to figure out, how do I bridge that skills gap? If I'm sitting on a SOC and I've been blue team my whole life, or if I've been a pen tester, or I've been on the red offensive side of things, how do I then make that jump into a Purple Team? Because I obviously know how to do one side of things. A lot of them do know how to do both sides of things. But basically, I think where really the thing that's probably going to be hardest for everybody is, and I think you even kind of hinted toward this, is the communication and collaboration with the people, because you're no longer just sitting there doing your, watching your SOC, checking your dashboards, has the SIEM, the EDR, anything fired off an alert today, triaging, checking for false positives, or I'm on a pen test, I'm looking for exploits, I'm doing the thing, I got vulnerabilities coming out of my ears. Now I've got to kind of like bring these two things together and merge them into one job. How do we make that happen effectively?
Yeah, I think it's not easy. It's definitely, you gotta kind of, first, of course, show your business case so you can do it. But, of course, some of it can just be proving it out. So if you're on the SOC side and the team maybe doesn't have an internal red team, right? How can you create kind of a strategy of, I'm going to start testing certain activity in the environment? It can be very simple. One big example, what we see on the front lines every day, is exfiltration tools being able to be ran in environments like rclone, azcopy. There's a lot of kind of, basic tools and basic actions that attackers take that are costing companies millions that, aren't actually validated and tested often by security teams. So something you could do is keep it simple in the beginning of just, hey, I'm going to, this is a tool that, rclone is just a normal IT tool, right? That just pulls data together, uploads it, and zips it up to the cloud. that attackers use for fast exfil. So it's not like you're installing something natively malicious, but you can use that as a, hey, this is something we don't need, and here I ran it. Here's how we would detect it. Here's how we would block it. So some of it's kind of hard on the SOC side in some ways. I know a lot of this overlaps and integrates just in your day-to-day, but it's just kind of evolving to the point where you kind of showcase, the value of those different teams, like having someone, or being able to have time to focus on detection development, having time to focus on red teaming, having the time to do threat hunting. So, it's kind of showcasing the value and the outputs that you'd get through those. And if you're interested in kind of pursuing that, and it's something that makes you that you're very passionate about, you can look for opportunities out there where companies are to that maturity level. You can interview with them and say, hey, yeah, I kind of want to be part of this bigger picture and this team you have. You can always, they're going to want someone that's very hungry and interested in it, right? If they're going to put you into the mix, versus having someone come in that's just comfortable with their day-to-day. So tons of opportunities out there. It's just, I would say it's harder said than done. And with how each company is different from a SOC or testing perspective, you got to find the right way that it works for you. So
yeah, that's interesting because we tend to think in boxes, right? We like a good solid definition. This is what this is, and it sounds like what you're saying is that a lot of purple teaming is a one size fits one solution. It's very individualistic. It's very specific to your environment, your organization, the tech stack you're working with, the threats that are most likely going to be coming after you. It's funny, you were talking about how you can just get this tool, you can get that tool. You see all the time how APTs and just threat actors in general are using a lot of open source tooling, and even their own in-house tooling is becoming available in the open source community to work. Because I've played around with plenty of different rats and things of that nature that just kind of they were like, whatever, here's a free one. I just saw this article, actually, I'll drop it in chat, which was, I did a video on this because it's a great C2 framework, which is called Adaptix C2. And it's starting to be used. It looks like Palo Alto's Unit 42 is like, hey, we're starting to see this in a while. And that's because as these new things come out, threat actors are going to go, well, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can just go use that tool. Works really well. Why would I have to write my own? I can probably just make some few modifications and tweaks, add my own buffs, and I'm off to the races. Everything's great. I'm flying underneath EDR. I'm having a great time. So keeping an eye on those things and seeing what is being used by the threat actors out there, you could really easily go, you know what, let's spin up Adaptix in our environment and drop a beacon on one of these desktops and see what happens. See if we can get some detection on that. So very cool stuff. I don't mind hearing that it does kind of, it depends, right? That's the answer. It depends on what your purple team will look like and how that works and stuff. There's some general guidance toward doing that, but it's going to just depend on your environment.
Yeah, the neat thing there too, right? You can test some of these things, like you're mentioning that C2 framework. There's also just some attacks that, like if you can download a lot of different toolkits, right, for token abuse, and exfiltrating data from O365 environments is pretty scary. I would say you wouldn't believe how many times attackers have full access, have an active token in a O365 environment, and they set up, it just turns into a business email compromise. They set up forwarding rules. They, try to go after and do fraud where they have full access to the client's data. So I think that's what, some of this stuff, it's better to test it and find out how you can put in some controls and revoke and contain and take action against token theft, and, get creative with your conditional access policies now, before it becomes a trend, because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that I hope people aren't all of a sudden yell at someone's like, yeah, I'm just going to go start doing that when we start seeing more of it. But there's so much low-hanging fruit out there that sometimes attackers, initial access brokers don't even care about, that I think will be a big trend for next year. A good example too is like we worked on, how many people here like Slack or have Slack. Slack tokens, if you have one, doesn't guard you. You still get directly to Slack, even if you have Microsoft SSO, all the different conditional access policies, that token doesn't care about those, so there's so many different token theft based attacks that I think will be pretty scary now and into the future. And I don't see a good solution for it. I think Microsoft different teams are working on options, but I mean, we'll see. I don't see a simple fix, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of
I mean, you mentioned Evil Jinx before, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, creating good custom fishlets are a bit of an art as much of a science, but once they're on point, you're not, I mean, not that you're not gathering creds, you're not doing cred harvesting, you are, but that's not really the end goal with that tool. The end goal of that is to go, cool, I'm just going to act as a man in the middle. And then once that token gets assigned, I'm going to get to see it and grab me a copy of it, and I'll send it along your way. Everybody seems happy with their lives. It gets billed as a 2FA bypass, but it's more like session hijacking. It's just good old fashioned session hijacking, because the 2FA is working, 2FA is happening, but Evil Jinx just is like, yeah, go ahead. Here comes the 2FA prompt. You got it. Fill out whatever your authenticator says to fill out. Give that to me. I will pass that along. And then O365 or whatever email or whatever it is you're using goes, that's correct. Here's a token. Enjoy. And you're like, cool. Thank you. So
yeah. And that kind of talks to the purple team piece, right? Like I have a lot of great friends that I've worked with over the years on the red teaming side, and I wouldn't say I'm that good at the red teaming side of the house. So I hit them up and say, hey, how hard is this to do? Is this realistic? And it's just like, what do you mean it's easy? What do you mean there's no way to block this and you're doing this in campaigns? So, I would say too, like if you're looking at kind of leveling up and understanding, how red teams operate, just reach out to people in the industry. They love talking about different things that they're doing, how they're using tools, or like you said, like that, like especially with what you do in Publish, like getting that insight into different tools and how they work and the nuances, take advantage of what's out there. You don't have to go and, test it out yourself necessarily. You can, but there's so many resources just to kind of learn from out there too. And fun, right? So
yeah. Have you seen browser in the browser attacks? These are insane, where they basically give you a browser within your browser that just basically says, hey, here you go, sign into O365 for me. Of course, it just looks like you've gone to O365 because in some way you actually have, but once you've signed in, you kind of signed in for them. And there's a fun one. There's a good time had by all when it comes to threat actors right there. Glad I could bring that to your attention, because that's going to be something you're going to be on the lookout for up and coming. Fun stuff. Let's check with chat. Chat's been chatty. They're on there. They're having some talking good times. Let me see. I pinned a few of these questions here. Let's see here. This one comes from Alice Grimm. What are some key foundations or foundational knowledge that any Purple Team member should not be without? What is if you ain't got this, you just ain't Purple Teaming kind of knowledge?
Yeah, I would say some of it, like if you're looking at it from the blue angle, would be, how can you threat hunt? How can you create detections? Like if you have, you may be dependent on your MDR team, who actually goes in and does a lot of that work for you. But if you're really testing and being part of that blue team side of it, you still want to understand how, you could create detections on specific TTPs or behaviors or IOCs in the environment, and kind of be able to really, if someone if somebody on the red side, right, they do, they were able to get in through the firewall or bypass, right, take advantage of a token in your O365 environment. Like what logs does that trigger? How can I create detections on that? Things that you can't put, actual controls in place to block. Having that skill set's definitely important on the blue side, so that you can, address what you're finding throughout the purple team exercise. And then threat hunting too, so how can you search and kind of turn that into more proactive threat hunting campaigns? So, putting together theories of, what if they did this? What if they did something else? How can we, increase our logging? How can we get more visibility? And then on the red team side, I mean, I think it's being able to communicate, kind of learning and kind of putting it into layman terms for more kind of blue teamers out there that maybe may not know like the full attack path of, hey, I'm going to be running this on this host, pulling, you know, going after taking and moving laterally with this account, and then I'm going to move in and dump creds and take over and get domain admin. They won't maybe see that attack path as easily as you do. So kind of explaining how you do that, how you move within the environment, what tools you're using, and kind of sparking some lights there of like, okay, well, that's probably logged like locally on the endpoint, or that's going to be logged on the domain controller or event logs, or that's going to be within the firewall log. So it's really kind of stitching it together and just enabling the teams to kind of fuse their approach. So I would say those would be kind of the things to lean into if you're really kind of focused on kind of building out that purple team model. It's just really kind of, in my opinion, focused on the outcomes. If you just quickly work with the teams, you're going to learn things, but kind of putting it on paper and making it more of a normal day-to-day is really the driver there.
Awesome. Good question. Good question. Getting that foundational knowledge. Got to know what that is. Let's see here. This one comes from Ang. So yeah, good to see you. We met at B-Sides Orlando last weekend. Hope to see you this week in B-Sides St. Pete. Let's see. It says, do you encounter egos or competition between the blue and red teams on which is better at their jobs? How to manage to get cooperative? So I've always found that it seems to be a bit, it depends. There are some people that really understand that their job is to collaborate with the blue team to help the defenses be stronger, faster, better, the $6 million defenses. But yeah, don't get me wrong. Ego can definitely come into place. Mike, have you experienced this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, each different individuals approach things differently, right? Sometimes, the blue team will be a bit defensive. Of course you were able to do that because I think someone put in the chat, you disabled the EDR on that host, or of course you were able to do that because, you guys didn't quickly isolate and block the C2. So on the blue side, right, the team's defensive because they want to showcase all the work they're doing and that they can respond quickly. And then on the red team side, right, it's going to be more of, what I see on the ego piece would be more of like, hey, it's so easy to break into this environment. I could do this within seconds. Have literally seen my favorite time was where a red teamer was like, hey, like these Bluetooth mice are a risk to the business. And it's like, okay, well, how can I show that? I'm just going to go and hack into one right in front of everyone and install software onto someone's computer. It was pretty epic, but also, those situations, I think there's definitely some barriers that you're going to have to break down by communicating the value and showing that you want to learn and making it worth everyone's time. So kind of painting the picture of like, hey, these are the outcomes we're going to be able to get out of this. Not only will we be able to showcase the great work the red team's doing, we can also illustrate like how we're maturing and what we're doing on the blue side. So, a good example is, right, this is like a very interactive tabletop where the team's doing it hands-on. And if you guys are running into a real incident, what drives me crazy is a lot of teams don't really practice what they would have to do in a real incident, right? And this would be something you want to be able to talk with your red team, talk with or understand red teaming so you can get to the kind of nuts and bolts of what happened quickly and get the environment contained and bring it back up. So it's just kind of one of those things that it's like, hey, why not? Why aren't you doing it? So
I'm gonna need you to calm down with all that realistic talk when it comes to tabletops. I mean, that's just not what we do here. So
yeah,
that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? It's like, why even have a tabletop if it's not going to try to address the threats and threat model your actual environments.
Yeah, that's 100%. I think there's a lot of, a lot of people doing right, thinking a tabletop's a one thing, once a year thing, where you should be like kind of tabletopping consistently in different ways from a technical response perspective, to kind of an incident response perspective, incident response perspective, threat hunting. Like it should just be kind of the normal, right? Why not um, test your capabilities? Like you've been spending so much time, you're learning, you're kind of building up your education. Let's put it to practice. So yeah, a lot of tabletops, right, theorized, and how do people kind of talk through responding? But okay, let's see it. Like how can you actually really test and showcase it? So yeah,
That's right. It's stunt hack for show and show me, really threat model this for dough. That's the kind of thing we're looking at here. It's nice to be able to do some cool stunt in front of everybody and kind of like get their attention, but then to be able to put that into this is how it affects the business. If I'm able to gain access into your systems, these are the things that I can touch. And if I can touch these things and I start doing things like BEC, like we were discussing earlier, this is a bad day for you. Reputationally, monetarily, legally, all sorts of things just opened up. Pandora and her box was like, pow, it's my birthday. We're having fun now. And you're like, I don't feel like I'm having any fun at all. This is the horriblest thing ever. You're like, yeah, but remember when we told you before that we should have been looking at this and you didn't listen? That's
yeah.
why we do it. So,
And unfortunately, on our side, like working with a lot of incidents, that's we hear that all the time. We were going to do that. We were about to do that. We are thinking about that. We talked about that. So, it's pretty unforgiving, actually running into an incident, and it's becoming extremely common. So I'm sure a lot of people here probably have went through an incident. It used to be pretty rare, right? We'd hear about, 1 out of 10. It'd be hard to find someone that actually went through a ransomware. Now it's, pretty common.
the
Some
other way
through
around.
it 2 to 3 times. So, yeah, it's just, being able to really kind of battle test and validate, right, the controls are working properly. We see time and time again EDR being set up or misconfigured that doesn't block the ransomware, being kind of encrypting all the devices, just simple things that are overlooked that simple tests could find. So it's just doing the simple things well. Sometimes on the SOC side, APT groups, different level, different discussion, different topic, but yeah, some of the tactics they're using are going to be overlapping with what you're seeing with some of these ransomware groups too. So they're not going to, like you said, they're going to use what works. If this works and I can go undetected and stay within the environment using RMM tools, why not? So
How is this a bad plan? They don't know, so they do it. That said, we got a couple minutes left. I got one good question for you from my man FedEx. He's asking you, is B-Sides Tampa, have they made that shop available to purchase some of those sick graphics from the con? How can a humble guy get one of those I think he means drawings. Because yes, I think we were discussing this earlier because I love all the B-Sides Tampa graphics. They have been great. My favorite shirt that I own out of all my shirts is the Stranger Things B-Sides Tampa shirt. I love that shirt. It fits great. It feels great. And it's just stinking cool. It is just stinking cool. It can people purchase? Can they get their hands on?
Yeah, it's a great question. Also, I'm really curious the story behind your name, FedEx. I'm like, there's got
his name is Federico.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
he always delivers. So
Oh, I like it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick. Yeah, we did have a open store at one point. I think we talked about it. I'll bring that back to the team. I know we're pretty fortunate, right? I think it'd make sense to take advantage of Chris, ransomware Chris, if no one knows him, is the master behind all of our logos year to year. So we actually already picked the theme for next year based on the vote that everyone did. So that'll be announced fairly soon. Pretty excited about that. But yeah, Chris does have his own store where he is selling kind of some unique B-Sides Tampa merch. But yeah, I'll take it back to the team. If there's a lot, if the community is interested, then yeah, we could probably get something set up where you could, go back and get retro merch. We do try to hand and sell it out at the conference as well. We have, you talk about the growth, right? We had to expand our storage because we have so much that keeps building up over the years. And so, yeah, we definitely have old school merch, but yeah, we'll see if we can get a store up and available.
Awesome. I look forward to that to my own self. Michael, guess what? It is time. We have made it to the hour. I mean, we talked a lot of purple teaming. I want to give you the opportunity to let people know where they can follow you, how they can learn about besides what anything else you would like to throw on the fire and let people know about. I'll give you a couple of seconds just to kind of get that out there and become the man of the people.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely feel free to follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I saw a couple connections already. Shoot me a message anytime. I would say, you know, I message people nonstop. It's all about the community, about us getting better together. So there's no bad question. Feel free, anything that you're curious about or I can help with or related to B-sides, IC2 Tampa, always an open book, and appreciate, building up new connections and relations within the space. B-sides Tampa will be in May 15th and 16th next year. So please block that if you're coming out. And yeah, provide us feedback if you have ideas or if you want to help. It's all community driven. We want to make it fun and impactful for everyone. So, and yeah, this weekend will be B-sides St. Pete. So I'll be out there too. So if you're going out, feel free to shoot me a note. I'll be doing a presentation on kind of crisis management, leaders kind of leading through major incidents, what happens and what should happen from their side, what doesn't happen, ways to like kind of learn from their approaches and how kind of different leaders can get better in that space and learn kind of what we see in day-to-day experience. And the next week we'll be in Philly for Net Diligence. It's more of a cyber insurance conference. So if anyone's going out there, it's more kind of typically cyber insurance carriers, lawyers, and all that jazz. But if you're out there, let me know. And also later this month, I'll be doing a presentation on the AI topic we're talking about. So how attackers are using AI and integrating into their toolkits and using it for prompt engineering, taking advantage of existing AI kind of data that exists out there. I don't know if you guys saw it. The one attacker ransomware to company said, hey, we're going to submit your data to a learning model and your paintings, where then it's just going to become part of the data. So that's kind of weird, not that effective, but we'll see how it happens there. But yeah, really appreciate the opportunity to talk with everyone and be on the podcast. Thanks for having me on.
A pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much for dropping by. We really appreciate you lending your insights and your expertise and your experience to us so that we can learn a little bit, maybe get into maybe purple teaming is the life for me, and I would be happy to spin one up in my environment. So hopefully we've lit a few fires underneath some butts here today. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate you joining us. As always, we'll be back. Actually, I got to let you know, no After Dark next week and no IRL next week. I know, right? Big tears, big soggy, no tears. I have an on-site that I'm working, so I won't have my gear with me. I'll be super, super busy. So I'll have to make some YouTube videos and put them out in place of IRL and After Dark. But the following week, totally see it. And of course, we do have this Friday with CyberCast IRL. You got to join me there. Going to have a good time doing the morning pour as we do. I got the Lord's Camo Cup right here, just waiting for a monster. It's been almost a week. I'm starting to get the stretches. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everyone. Until next time, keep hacking.